Concrete coffins, the chilling reality of life inside UK, US, and Australian prisons. Before we begin, ask yourself one question. If the walls meant to protect society were hiding something far darker inside, would you want to know? Like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a warning. The emergency call came in just after midnight. An inmate at Rikers Island had been found unresponsive in his cell. By the time officers forced the steel door open, rigor had already begun to settle in. The fluorescent lights flickered above him, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. His cellmate stood against the wall, shaking, whispering the same words over and over. He asked for help. Nobody came. Within hours, investigators from the New York Department of Correction were on site. The official narrative formed quickly: medical emergency, tragic, but not suspicious. But something didn't sit right with Detective Laura Mendez, assigned to review custodial deaths across multiple facilities. Because this wasn't the first. Across the Atlantic, an inspector's report had just been released from HMP Birmingham in England. Rising assaults, staff shortages, entire wings operating with barely enough officers to monitor hundreds of men. One former inmate described his cell as a tomb with a mattress. And in Australia, footage from Victoria's youth justice centers had triggered public outrage. Teenagers held in isolation for days. Restraints used repeatedly. Whistleblowers claiming systemic neglect. 3 different countries. 3 different prison systems. The same whispers. Overcrowding. Understaffing. Silence. Back in New York, Detective Mendez examined surveillance logs from the night of the death. Cameras outside the victim's housing unit had gone offline for exactly 18 minutes. Maintenance called it a technical glitch. But the outage coincided precisely with the time inmates reported shouting and banging on doors. The victim, Marcus Hale, wasn't serving a life sentence. He was awaiting trial on a non-violent charge. His family had filed complaints weeks earlier, claiming he feared for his safety. Meanwhile, in Birmingham, a former correctional officer named Daniel Whitmore contacted British reporters anonymously. He claimed certain wings were effectively controlled by inmate hierarchies because there simply weren't enough staff to intervene. And in Melbourne, a youth detainee's medical records revealed repeated requests for psychological assistance, requests marked pending for months. Detective Mendez spread the files across her desk. Separate incidents, separated by oceans. But patterns don't lie. Then she noticed something chilling. Marcus Hale had filed a formal grievance 2 days before his death. It wasn't about another inmate. It was about the guards. And when investigators pulled the internal report attached to his complaint, it had been erased. If you thought Chapter 1 was shocking, brace yourself, because what happens next is a descent into a system that seems designed to break people and hide the truth. If you're ready, hit that subscribe button, because this is where the story really spirals. Detective Mendez felt the weight of it immediately. The missing grievance wasn't just a clerical error. It was deliberate. Someone on the inside had altered the records, wiped the trail. But who and why? She started digging into Marcus Hale's last days. Prison logs, cellmate testimonies, even cafeteria movements. Every detail seemed normal on paper, yet the interviews told a different story. Inmates whispered about a new enforcer in the wing, someone the guards tolerated or perhaps feared. Meanwhile, in Birmingham, Daniel Whitmore's information was leading journalists to uncover an internal network of contraband and intimidation. Some officers turned a blind eye, he claimed, while others actively participated in silencing prisoners who complained. Whistleblowers were being reassigned, dismissed, or threatened with legal action. One former inmate recalled a midnight confrontation, a guard entering his cell, removing his personal items, and warning him never to speak about what he saw. In Melbourne, the situation was equally grim. A 16-year-old detainee named Liam had gone missing for 4 hours. Closed-circuit cameras revealed nothing. The footage had conveniently been overwritten. Staff insisted he had been in his cell the entire time. But Liam's lawyer received a text from the teen himself, sent secretly via a hidden phone. "They're watching everything. I can't trust anyone." Back in New York, Detective Mendez discovered something even more unsettling. The guards on Marcus Hale's unit had recently rotated through other high-profile cases. One of them had been under investigation in 2019 for inmate abuse, only to have the charges quietly dropped. Cross-referencing shifts, she realized the same officer was on duty during every reported accident in the past year. The detective went to interview Marcus's cellmate. The man's hands were trembling, his eyes darting nervously. "They told me if I spoke, I'd end up like him," he whispered. "I saw them. I know who did it. But I can't say his name." Every lead seemed to hit a wall. Every witness was paralyzed by fear. And then the breakthrough came. While searching the internal servers, Mendez discovered a folder hidden under a generic file name: Maintenance Reports. Inside were dozens of deleted video clips. One of them showed Marcus struggling to defend himself against a figure in uniform. The camera was angled perfectly to obscure the face, but the officer's build, the way he moved, it was unmistakable. Before she could copy the file, the computer shut down. Power outage. The building went dark. And in that instant, Detective Mendez realized the danger wasn't just inside the prison walls, it had followed her here. She wasn't alone. And whoever was watching was waiting. The lights flickered back on, but the room felt colder. Detective Mendez's pulse raced. Someone had been in the server room. Someone who knew exactly what she was looking for. Every instinct screamed that she was no longer investigating a death. She was being hunted. Across the Atlantic, Birmingham was erupting. Investigative journalists had begun publishing names and allegations, exposing a network of cover-ups. One story detailed how an officer had intentionally ignored a stabbing incident in the yard because the victim brought it on himself. The public outcry was immediate, but insiders warned journalists they were playing a dangerous game. Threats, both overt and subtle, were coming fast. Back in Melbourne, Liam had vanished entirely. His lawyer received a single, cryptic message, a photo of an empty isolation cell with a scrawled note: "Concrete coffins hide more than bodies." Police searched the center, but Liam was gone without a trace. Staff insisted he had left with a relative, though no relative existed. The whispers of abuse, coercion, and silenced witnesses were no longer rumors. They were manifesting as real danger. In New York, Mendez pieced together a disturbing pattern. Marcus Hale's death wasn't isolated. Over the past 6 months, at least 7 medical emergencies had occurred under the same officer's watch. All complaints had vanished from the system. And now, with the deleted footage showing Marcus's struggle, the officer had a new reason to keep Mendez silent. She reached out to an anonymous source within the facility, a former corrections officer willing to talk under strict conditions. The tip was brief but chilling. "They run this place like a small army. Everyone knows the rules. One false move, and you disappear, just like Marcus." Mendez realized she couldn't rely on standard protocols. Evidence had been deleted, cameras sabotaged, and staff complicit. She had to move fast and alone. Her next step was a covert interview with a cellmate, the only witness brave enough, or desperate enough, to speak. The meeting was set in an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Shadows stretched across the cracked concrete floor. The cellmate's voice trembled as he spoke. "They told Marcus to drop the complaint, he didn't. They said it would get worse. And then he disappeared into the system. No cameras, no record, nothing. Just gone." Suddenly, headlights flooded the warehouse through broken windows. A car had pulled up, engines still running. Mendez instinctively ducked behind a stack of crates. The cellmate froze. Footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. A figure appeared, familiar build, deliberate gait, the same as the officer in the footage. The cellmate gasped. "They found us." Before Mendez could react, a gun clicked in the shadows. And then, the cellmate whispered one word that froze her blood: betrayal. It wasn't just the system that was corrupt. Someone had been feeding information, someone she trusted, and that betrayal would change everything. The warehouse door slammed behind her. And in the echo, she knew there was no turning back. Detective Mendez pressed herself against the cold metal crate. every nerve screaming. The gun didn't waver. The figure stepped closer, shadowed by the dim light, and for the first time she saw the face clearly. It was Officer Calder, the same man in the deleted footage. His expression was calm, almost casual, like a predator surveying prey. "You shouldn't have come here, detective," he said, voice low but steady. "Some truths aren't meant to be uncovered." Mendez forced herself to stay calm, recalling every training exercise, every negotiation tactic. "Why Marcus?" she asked. "Why erase the records? Why all the others?" Calder smirked. "Rules of survival. You either bend or you break. Marcus, he broke. The rest? They'll learn eventually." The cellmate whimpered behind her, and Mendez's heart sank. Every instinct told her she had seconds before this spiraled into a massacre. Then she noticed the floor beneath Calder's feet, a loose panel, slightly ajar. Her mind raced. "Listen," she said, voice steady, buying time. "You've already done the impossible, controlling an entire wing, erasing files, intimidating witnesses. But there's a bigger picture. The higher-ups? They know. They're watching too." Calder froze, ever so slightly. That hesitation was enough. Mendez lunged toward the panel, kicking it open and revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. "Go." "Now," she hissed to the cellmate. He scrambled in, disappearing into darkness. Calder fired, and the bullet ricocheted off concrete. Mendez ducked behind crates, heart pounding, mind racing. She grabbed a fallen metal pipe and swung, striking Calder off balance. He stumbled back, cursing, and for a fleeting second, Mendez saw a glimpse of fear in his eyes. The shaft was barely wide enough, but it was their only chance. Mendez and the cellmate crawled through, wincing as metal scraped skin, lungs burning with exertion. Outside, sirens sounded faintly in the distance. Someone had called it in. The system hadn't completely failed. They emerged behind the warehouse, battered, bruised, but alive. Mendez pulled out her phone and uploaded the recovered footage to a secure server, ensuring Marcus Hale's story and the truth of the system's corruption could no longer be buried. Weeks later, Calder was arrested, facing multiple counts of obstruction, falsifying records, and involuntary manslaughter. Public outrage surged in New York, while investigations across the UK and Australia intensified. Hidden patterns emerged: officers enabling violence, administrative negligence, and systemic cover-ups that stretched far beyond what anyone had imagined. But Mendez knew the scars would remain. Concrete walls, overcrowded cells, and understaffed wings. Prisons weren't just places of punishment. They were pressure cookers of fear, betrayal, and survival. And Marcus Hale had paid the ultimate price. As she watched the sun rise over the city skyline, Mendez whispered to herself, "Justice isn't enough. Awareness is. And the world needs to see it." If you think this story was intense, remember, this is just one story from thousands hidden behind steel doors. The concrete coffins are real. And the question remains, how many more voices are still trapped inside?